What's up, everybody? Happy new Cinema 4D release day after release day. I'm super excited to be hosting this edition of the School of Motion Workflow Show. I am EJ Hassenfratz, and today we brought someone that knows the most about Cinema 4D, way more than I do at least, to come on and talk about all of these new additions, not even to just R25, but to MAXON in general. MAXON's got so many products. So let's welcome in Rick Barrett, product manager over at MAXON. Rick, what's up? Good morning.
Hey, everybody. Hey, EJ.
Thanks for joining us today. I know it's very busy. You guys got live streams happening right now over at the 3D Motion Show. So a lot of stuff going on, a lot of MoGraph programming today on the internet.
Totally. Yeah. And, if you're here now, obviously you're not at the 3D Motion Show, but the great thing is that those are available on YouTube. So you can go watch them later. But definitely check out. We got some great presentations. I think the NASA's is going on right now opposite us. So.
Oh, good. So we can just totally go up against the NASA's.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see who gets more attendees.
Yeah, let's see who does more. Yeah. All right. Cool. All right, so I mean, MAXON is now not just like Cinema 4D anymore. If you watch the 3D Motion Show announcements yesterday, there's a lot of products in the MAXON family now. So maybe we can just start off by just listing out what are all these new updates, because now we got Red Giant products. So I hear there was like a particular update and form that would be of interest to some of our motion graphics users, After Effects users out there. So what are all these announcements across all products?
Yeah, I'm totally. MAXON's all about delivering workflow tools, workflow solutions across all of digital media, specifically video and 3D now. And the Red Giant tool set has had some great enhancements. Trapcode in particular, we actually integrated all of the form tool set into Trapcode particular. So now you get all of those great behaviors with the sort of always present particles of form. And some of the predator prey stuff is really cool, like the being able to kill the particles when they attack and spawn new ones. It's all really cool stuff happening in Trapcode.
Video game. And what's going on over there?
Totally. Some of these demos,
we're hunting particles and killing them in cold blood.
And unfortunately, speaking of we also acquired a great After Effects plugin that is now part of our VFX tool set, which is Bang. And so this is a great solution for being able to add muzzle flashes onto your guns. We don't want to be running around with real guns, and obviously we don't want to be shooting them. But you take a toy gun. I actually thought, I haven't had a chance yet. I want to play with adding some muzzle flashes to my Nerf guns and stuff. But yeah, that's a really great tool set. Really intuitive, because there's a little 3D gun that shows up right there in the After Effects window that helps you to align the muzzle. So yeah, super cool to have that now as part of the MAXON family in the VFX tool set. And then lots of other updates across all of the Red Giant tool set, specifically for multi-frame rendering, macOS Metal and Silicon support, all that kind of good stuff. And then Redshift, of course. We've moved Redshift onto subscription at the end of August, and now we have it available for a very low subscription price to get started. And further tying that in, and Redshift RT has we'll probably touch on that a little bit here later, but Redshift RT is now up in public beta. So exciting stuff really across all of the MAXON family.
Did you? I don't know if you mentioned Forger, but there was some Forger news too.
I didn't specifically. I don't know that we've specifically mentioned a whole lot of Forger news, but there's definitely going to still be some Forger news before the end of the year.
Something to keep your eye out for.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
And we saved the best for last. Of course, the main event, Cinema 4D. We got R25, which first glance, like this has got to be the biggest UI overhaul, like biggest new look Cinema 4D since like what version 5, 6,
10. No, I think it was 10 or 11. We had the old blueberry look with the
Oh,
blueberry
that's
icons.
right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember that, these these interface changes, I know, they take people by surprise, and it takes a little getting used to. And I remember when that last major interface overhaul a decade ago came out,
No one misses that blueberry look anymore. If you
yeah,
look
exactly.
at it, it's like, wow.
It takes about a week of like, oh wow, everything's, and then you realize, oh, the cloner icon still looks like a cloner. The
Right.
bend icon definitely still looks like the bend. It's just not filled in anymore.
Right.
And like you said, like you've pointed out, some of the icons are really cool. Like that new jiggle icon is pretty awesome.
Okay, can we get whoever is in charge of product and like swag? I want a melt deformer shirt and I want a jiggle deformer shirt.
Yeah.
Okay?
I
We
have
need to make that
definitely
happen.
passed that request on from you.
Like some kind of pun, like I like to make it, and then just the jiggle deformer logo. Yeah, like let's make that happen. Let's bug Maxon VFX, hit him at Twitter.
Yep.
Let's get some of those shirts going for the next event.
Yeah, I can see it now. It's like a dark purple shirt with the light purple jiggle icon on it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I've been sitting with the new update for a few weeks now, being part of the, beta testing and being, fortunate enough to be part of this. I've been able to see it kind of evolve, and like even using it day to day now, I'm finding all of these little things where I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And it's like all those things that you don't realize right off the get-go. Like there's so many things I learned in the past day from watching your video, which is up on YouTube. I think you guys just released it a little bit later yesterday. And then Chris Schmidt's video, which he goes super in depth and like even showed some things that I didn't even know about. And we also have a update video that I did here at School of Motion, also up on YouTube. But there are so many nice quality of life things that once you start using it, and I know it just released yesterday, but I feel like in the next week or 2 weeks, we're really going to start to see, all of these like, wow, like this is really cool. Like this is why you should upgrade to R25, because you have to sit with it for a while to really get the full lay of the land. But first glance, we have a lot of icons in different groupings and stuff like that. So I don't know if you wanted to bring up, share your screen, and we can just kind of start there with the icon groupings and all of the total, like every icon is new. There's not a single icon that has not been touched.
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk about the awesome jiggle deformer, but
let's pull up the screen. And I mean, they are all new, but like I said, they really do retain the flavor of the old. Right. I mean, your cloner here still looks like a cloner. Right. The Voronoi fracture, I think, looks a lot better now. I mean, really, all of these look a lot better. The real idea here was to make them a little less distracting, make them simpler, more iconic. I mean, they had gotten very sort of 3D, visually dense, maybe a little too colorful and distracting. And so really just kind of wanted to tone a lot of that back and just give it a more modern appearance overall. New icons throughout. And obviously we rearranged things too. And a lot of that came down to wanting to take advantage of a new technology that we developed for the interface, which is dynamic palettes. So the way this works is that your palette on the left now automatically adjusts based on what your current document mode is. So if you're in object mode, you'll see that you're getting, your object related tools, like your placement tools, your Doodle tools in here, your spline creation.
I love the Doodle tool being docked as a tutorial maker. Like I always am using that. So I like that it's docked now. But yeah, if you changed the different modes, like the polygon edge.
We go into polygon, and now we've got all the polygon tools. So the beautiful thing here is this really kind of eliminated the need to even, I mean, we still created one, but it kind of eliminated the need to have a modeling layout, because all of your modeling tools are always right there close at hand, and they're all active for whatever mode you're in. You're not seeing a bunch of gray deactivated icons all the time.
Right.
I think that this is really great use of space. And you'll notice that this carries over to like the sculpting layout, where this will be all the sculpting tools, the painting layout, it's all the 3D painting tools. It just dynamically changes so that you've got the tools you need to do what you need to do right here close at hand. I mean, when we created the placement tools with S24 and introduced those, it was a real struggle to figure out where to squeeze them into the interface. And now it's just natural, because when you're in object mode, there they are right there. What am I doing? I'm manipulating objects, placement tools. It's perfect, you know?
Right. And just wanted to call out, we're getting some questions coming in, but I just wanted to announce that we are taking questions. We'll be answering them all throughout. Probably have a short Q&A period at the very end here. So keep those questions coming. Matt asks, have the Redshift icons changed at all? Because I know they're, you know, if you go to certain menus like the Redshift lights and stuff, they have icons. Have they been touched at all? I think they're, so they're still
they haven't
OG
they
Redshift.
haven't really. But that's something that's definitely going to get tackled.
Awesome. That's a great question. I didn't even realize that. You know, we're just so bedazzled with all the new icons for C4D. You don't even realize the Redshift stuff.
Yeah, and we have been working, you know, sort of progressively to integrate Redshift more and more. You'll see that now that they're actually integrated into the same menus, so that you get all the Redshift lights here in the light menu as well. But you know, it's going to continue to be a process to sort of get. You know, we want to make sure that we keep Redshift, you know, and we certainly respect the fact that they're in all the DCCs, and that we need to build an interface that works across not just Cinema 4D, but all the rest. But also we'll be continuing to tie in the Redshift features. Like, for instance, with we reorganized the render settings in S24. It came out concurrent with S24. And now those have rolled out to all the other DCCs. You know, we were careful when we did them to consider, you know, how it would look in Maya and Houdini and all the other DCCs while we did it.
Right. So, I mean, we'll get to Redshift a little bit later, because RT is super cool. But that's good to know that that's also on the horizon. Let's dig back into, because I mean, first glance, we also have we have different groupings, icon groupings, dynamic palettes are awesome. We also have some new additions to the UI, new icons that I think are actually really helpful. So of course you have like the commander in the top left, which I just noticed the other day. So you don't have to, you know, if you don't want to do Shift C or whatever, the commander's there. Like I said, the Doodle Tool, the brush tool, like I think the brush tool is also a really nice default button to have there, because, you know, if you're doing vertex maps or anything like that, I think that's a huge time saver. Let's see, what else was there?
Well, and then across the top, you know, we've added these quick menus to get to the snapping and the quantizing and the mesh checking. And then, you know, the quick access to the grids and the snapping settings up here. You've got your modeling axis options and your soft selection right there. And then, you know, with S24, we kind of reworked the way Solo worked, of course, and made it a lot cleaner. But we've tucked that up here too. And then the hot corners. I mean, the hot corners are
you might be wondering, like, where's the material manager? Where's the coordinates?
So with S24, we had the asset browser, and again, we were struggling to find where to put things, and so we introduced sort of the fold out of the asset browser. It was over here originally, but then once we had that technology, we really wanted to make the viewport front and center and give people as much room to work as possible, while still avoiding having to change layouts constantly. And so, you know, we've created these additional hot corners so you can easily pop out the material manager when you need it. And really, it works so well over here because now we can show a list view, and so many more materials are there, and you can see the entire name. But if you like it in icon mode, you can easily swap down here. You can adjust the size of the material preview balls.
Well, you could just drag and drop them right next door to the object manager.
Right, you can go left, you can go right, wherever you need to go.
Well, and a lot of and even mentioning where all the asset buttons are, like all the object creation buttons, like they live right directly next to where they will populate in the object manager. So a lot of this stuff is like, I like to talk about saving mouse miles, cursor miles, or pixel miles, or something like that. There's a lot of stuff like that for sure. And one thing I recommend is like just memorize the shortcut keys for, like, you know, what is it? Shift 3 is timeline,
Right.
you know, all that kind of stuff. So you can easily toggle on and off all that kind of stuff. Because one thing that I definitely use a lot is the coordinate manager. And I don't know what is that? Shift something.
Shift F7.
Shift F7. And because in the coordinate manager, you also have the docked reset transform as well, which I think is something we use a ton too.
Yeah, and this is non-modal now. So I mean, we'll go back here to let's create a new file real quick. And you know, before you would have had to click apply and stuff, but now, like, as soon as you unclick, it will
right. Yeah,
it'll do the action. And what you're also seeing here is these cool new virtual sliders that we've got all over the interface, so that now you can just click right on the field and just drag left and right, and it'll you know, take action. And then there's also this cool behavior that's been added where wherever your cursor is, if you use the up down arrows, that's the increment. So we can, you know, adjust this by ones, we can adjust it by tens, we can adjust it by hundreds. Makes it really easy to kind of like decide how big a change you want to make with your, you know, as you're like sort of scrubbing with the arrow keys.
And that's so cool. And yet another thing that I just learned about yesterday. There's so many little things like that. Speaking of other little things, so there's also that previously used tool widget that's docked in the UI over on the left that I find myself using a ton, you know, because it's right in your viewport. You don't have to go up to the top menu and kind of search for that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Super cool stuff. Another thing that I really love, and that I love, like Doodle Tool. Maybe people might not even be aware that it exists, but you put it front and center in the dock, so you can do, you know, look dev or something like that. Add notes. There you go. Draw mustaches on people. I don't. But then there's other icons that you've added, like at the bottom there in the timeline. Something that I use a ton, and I feel like a lot of people don't know about, is Cappuccino, and it's right in there now. And basically, if you're an After Effects user, Cappuccino is your motion trace, where you can basically record your mouse movement in the viewport, and it converts it to keyframes, which is really cool.
Yeah, and one of the big requests was, after we introduced the dynamic placement in 24, was to be able to sort of keyframe that movement.
Right.
And we actually introduced that as part of SP1 of 24, but now it's you know, available to everyone in 25 as well, to be able to just use the Cappuccino tool to record all those keyframes, all that dynamic placement.
It's so cool. I mean, that's the thing I love about Cinema 4D is there's a new feature, and then it just totally, you know, blows the dust off of some old features and gives them a totally new, way to use them.
Yeah, well, and Cinema 4D creators are so good at misusing all of the features we create that so often we'll have that where we'll come out with a new feature and didn't even think of using it that way, but the feature request starts coming in immediately, and so glad we were able to address that one quickly.
Yeah. So yeah, and then there's just so many things to dig into. Like surface level, there's obvious things, but then one of the things I really dig are, I mean, let's talk about the tab documents. You just were, you know, going from document to document there. It's almost like a web browser inside of Cinema 4D. And then something that Chris Schmidt showed is when you actually right click on that stuff. So you're like, you can easily just like copy something from one, tab over to the next one and paste it there. But then you have, like, you can duplicate a project just by right clicking. You can show and explore, which is super cool. Like, you can actually, where is that file? And then that's stuff I didn't even know.
Yeah, this is, I think, my favorite feature. And I mean, it's just so awesome to be able to I mean, first of all, it's awesome that Cinema 4D, it's one of the only 3D packages that allows you to have multiple projects open at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've always like sort of marveled at, and also have always like the feeling at the trade show where you close down for the day and it's like you look at your window menu and there's like 50 projects open, right?
I mean, it's like my Cinema 4D is going to become like my Google Chrome, where I just have like 100 tabs open. It's like I should probably close some of these.
Totally. And you can scroll this back and forth, so that's good. Pretty soon we'll have to have tab groups. I mean, I guess that's next, but yeah, it's
about scrolling. Show how you can slide those menus back and forth. That was something I discovered like by accident, where you can actually like
this was something that I didn't even realize. You showed me this.
I was like, did you know? Is this right? Like, or is this? Am I breaking something here?
And if you want more room for those document tabs, by the way, you can like decide that some of these layouts are things you're never going to use and just uncheck them, or they'll still be accessible from the drop down. But you can make some more room on that bar.
Does that save if you shut down and is that just stored into the
in the prefs? Yeah.
So I guess while you're up there, we can talk about you can also, if like this is too much of a shock to your system, you can actually revert to the R23 menus with all of the new icons, of course. But I almost like recommend if this is too overwhelming for you, which I mean, it took me very little time to get up and running, but if you're like, what are these new icons? What do they mean? Maybe reverting back to the old layout will help you kind of retrain your brain and get used to the new icons, and then switch to R25 where things are in different places. I don't know. But I think
you just flip the switch here and it switches between the old layouts and the new layouts. So here we have an R23 compatible layout, which, especially if you're following like one of your old tutorials, EJ, that can be helpful to at least have things in the same place. Right,
exactly. But I feel like once you're committed to R25, it is a little rough to go back, because it's kind of like when I was switching from Mac to PC and I had one foot in both worlds, and I was like trying to remember all the shortcut keys and where things were. It's like I just got to commit, just keep in Windows and just get used to it, and then you just learn all the good stuff about it. So okay, let's see. While we're on the topic of like, so you can close out layouts, let's talk about all of the ability to create your own docked palettes. That's a new feature here, where if you have like, say, sculpting brushes or something like that, you can actually dock them as a tab, right?
Right. So, I mean, one of the huge things that's been added here in 25 is all of the presets have been moved into the asset manager. So we had the asset browser had all of the, the objects and the materials and stuff, and that we added in S24. We didn't have a chance to get the presets in. So that was one of the main efforts of this 25 cycle. So all of the typical presets that you're used to using, and as we were doing that, we wanted to create sort of a generic way to dock these in and create sort of your own palette of presets. So you see this especially in the paint layout. And so if we go here to the brushes and the swatches, what you have here now is a simplified asset browser that is docked. So the great thing here is that you get all the searching. So I can just type pencil and easily pull out, if I could type. You had this problem, didn't you, EJ?
It's still early.
And I get all the pencils. And if I want this in list view, I can easily switch to list view, and I can adjust the size of these thumbnails. I get all of the benefits of the asset browser system, but in this sort of simplified view, filtered to a specific folder or type. And same thing here with the swatches. So you can do that really with any of the asset browser folders. If I just want a palette of appliances, I can just go in here and make a simple browser and dock in to my layout. And now I have appliances that I can easily create anytime. And then on top of that, if you don't want to, take up an entire palette, but say you always need to add toasters to your scene, you can go in here and customize palettes and just drag the toaster up into your layout.
I like to have a jiggle deformer icon
now
always docked. Just because, I mean, especially with the new icon, I just like to have it there. It's like my security blanket.
Yep.
Let's also talk because there's also the new content that folder that's new in there as well. Because, and I think a lot of people, I don't know if people realize, but the content browser is always being updated, even outside of main release dates, like yesterday.
Yeah,
You guys added all the you can even see right there all of the new like mocap assets, and I think that came out like a month ago
in August. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
this is the really cool thing about the asset browser is that we've created a whole new ecosystem and a whole new delivery mechanism because we've disconnected the assets from the release delivery. We can and because everything's just always online all the time, we can give subscribers new content on a regular basis. And so we shipped new content in May, June, July, August. There were kit bash elements. There were like hand tools like saws and hammers and things like that. There was motion capture elements. You see in here some bolts and things. And then new in this build in September, new in the library are some trees. So you've got these boxwoods, the ficus. I mean, we just got a new office for Maxon. I could see us putting a few of these in the 3D version of the office to get some of these houseplants figured out. And then we've also got these pins which tie into some of the data integration features that we've added.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, we try to keep it thematic, and we're dropping new assets every single month. So subscribers should definitely keep an eye on this new content folder and see what's new all the time.
Yeah, so we're getting some good questions specifically about asset browser, and again, keep those questions coming. We'll answer them throughout the live stream here. But some specific asset browser questions. How do you move your custom, because you can create custom assets, you can load in your own groups and stuff like that, just like the old lib4d files back in the old content browser system. How can you move your custom asset presets from R24 to R25 or S24 to R25, I guess?
So there's an option here in the create menu, import legacy library. So any of those old lib4ds, you just click this button and it pops up a file browser. You click the lib4d and it just brings it right in, and it's part of your asset browser library.
Easy enough.
Yep.
Another good question is the asset browser, as far as materials, those are all standard and like C4D node materials, right? Is there well, I don't think there's any Redshift materials in there, but is that something that might be coming in the future?
Definitely.
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
Right now it's all still the standard materials, but definitely Redshift is a hot topic to get into the asset system. And the really cool thing too, though, I mean, Redshift materials, of course, are supported. They're just not part of the native library. And I think I showed this in the S24 stream, but if you have a Redshift material or a scene that uses Redshift, it actually gets a little Redshift icon in the corner, so you can easily identify those. But yeah, we'll be adding more. Adding some Redshift materials into the asset library soon.
Awesome. Because we're talking about custom lib4d files, stuff like that. Let's talk about all the presets you can make. And this is something, again, I just learned of recently, but like anything with a parameter you can save a new custom like default state of it, and even like viewport settings. And actually, maybe this is a good opportunity to go into those like viewport settings, because even those are kind of regrouped and are way more efficient as far as grouping, like the filter menu, like all of your viewport work plane, like the work plane grid, the horizon is all grouped together. So if you want to turn all those things off, it's very easy to just uncheck all those new grouped aspects. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you already have a project file set up, so take it away.
Yeah, totally. So, I mean, the first goal was to get all of those typical Cinema 4D presets transferred, like body paint brushes, the cap and bevel presets, the gradient presets, and those all still show up, where you expect them. So, for instance, if you're creating a gradient, you come down here, you create a gradient, and you have the load and save preset buttons, just like you're used to from prior versions. These again just pop up a simplified asset browser, so you have now all of the searching capability, so you can easily filter these down and change the view and everything. So all of those sort of typical preset types. Another thing that was added was all of the import export formats now have presets. So if you have a certain program that you always bring files in from, and it always needs a certain combination of FBX settings, you can save those as a preset now, and so you can easily import and export with that common preset. But the really cool thing is that when we looked at the object system and how we could make a preset for that, I mean, we had the old set as default behavior, but you could only set one default, right?
Right, yeah.
And now we have the capability to actually save presets for anything with an attribute, basically. So objects, tags, tools, you can save your presets and easily recall them. So one of the things that we've been showing this off a lot with is the text object, because people typically have specific fonts and sizes that they go to a lot. And the great thing here is that you can have a preset set, and you can easily apply these to a set of objects.
Like, that's huge. If you work for a company that has their brand font, like, you don't have to every single project file load up that font. And if you have a specific depth of font that you're using all the time for a promo or lower third system or something like that, like, this is like low-key massive, like a low-key massive update here.
So this one, looks like I grabbed the wrong version of the preset library, so it's broken. But that way we get to show how to build them, right?
There you go. Let's do it from scratch.
So what you do here is, from this menu, you just go down and choose Save Preset, and it will save that preset into your asset browser. You can adjust the preview, the icon, if you want.
Now, is that saving just the selected parameters there, or is
so
it all of
here,
them?
if you use Save Preset, it saves all of them.
Okay,
but
cool.
If you want to save just a selected parameter, you just select that one parameter, and say this is horizontal spacing, and we want to make it like wide, right?
Yeah.
So we'll save selected as preset.
Oh, there you go.
And we'll call this horizontal spacing wide. And now we can go to like this system text here, and we can apply horizontal spacing wide, and it doesn't affect anything else. It just affects that one parameter. And then we can zero this out, and we can save this preset as script. And now if we say we want to try that Cinema 4D text as script, well, we just go down here and we choose script, and we can swap these. We can go and try this as the futuristic one. So really, I think that once people start, this is one of those things that, like, you've got to get in your head that this is a capability, and then you've got to start building out that library. But once you have that library of these presets for all your objects and all your tags and all your tools, I mean, think about compositing tags, for instance, like having a preset for this is a shadow catcher, this is a this is not seen by camera, and remembering all those different checkboxes you need to check in each of those cases. I mean, this is going to be huge. And because it's part of the asset browser, we can deliver these to you as well as part of those monthly asset drops.
So these also work for, like, if I'm using a Redshift object, it works with Redshift lights and all those Redshift assets, right?
Totally.
What if I'm using like all right, so something I do a ton is you create a light, and you have like a softbox texture on it. Maybe it's a gradient or something like that. You're designing reflections. Does it also save something if you load up like a texture file for like a Redshift light? Can you save out that preset as a light and be like, okay, I want a softbox with a gradient for the texture?
Yeah, so this just stores the attributes. But what you're talking about there would just be an asset.
It would just be the file path in that attribute.
So,
right?
I mean, I could take, the system text and I could save that as an object preset, which is kind of what you're talking about with the light,
Mm-hmm.
But if it's purely just the attributes that you're saving, then that's what the system's great for.
Okay. So an attribute is also, if a texture is an attribute for a light, that should save a
texture assignment. However, the texture won't come in. So not quite what you're looking for there, but that's kind of something we could look into. Totally.
Okay. All right. So that could be a cool thing. I mean, even just the ability to have a specific light, a certain shape or whatever,
right.
Or maybe it's
well, and you can certainly do that
shadow catcher kind of deal.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly do that. We could go in here and create an area light, and we could set it to. Let me get into my move tool here. We could set the area light to be, a sphere, and a certain size, and we could save that as a preset. Sphere. Area light, and then if that's certainly you can pull that up by creating a new area light and choosing sphere area light. But if that's something that you do with your area lights all the time, you can go in here and you can click the crown, and now that's going to be the default. So whenever I create a light, it's going to create a spherical area light. Or again, we showed how you can integrate these into a palette, right? Well, I can go in and pop this up and I can go into customize palettes mode, and I can pop this up, and I can just say, oh yeah, I need that sphere area light all the time. Mm-hmm. So now I've got a button in my interface that I can just easily create sphere area lights, with a single click.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. All right. Well, that preset thing I think is a huge time saver. That's something that I think will impact everyone's workflow day to day.
Totally.
Some other things that I feel like was also a happy accident of discovering was when you want to add a tag, when you right click, want to add a tag, there's that new filter search. And there's a few of these filter search little options where you can, just type whatever tag you want and it'll filter that out and show you exactly what you want. So you don't have to, dig into menus and stuff like that. So I know I'm always like, oh, where was that tag? Like, where are the constraint tags? Like, oh, there it is. And you just type it in, and it's almost like a little mini commander in each tag. Oh yeah, even in the material. Yeah.
We've been adding these in all of these little pop-up menus, and again, super handy to be able to filter down the menu really quickly, because we know a lot of these get kind of deep, and where was the checkerboard again? Is it in surfaces? Is it in and now it's super easy to just dial that in and find it.
Well, now that we're talking about filters and kind of tag filters, let's go to is there anything else you wanted to talk about as far as UI stuff before we dig into like features?
No, we can dig into you drive, you set the direction, EJ.
All right. Well, I think this is, since I was introduced to it in the beta, this next thing is probably one of my favorite things, and I think that it's gonna, like, if you're an animator that animates a lot in Cinema 4D, I think this is a game changer, because if you wanted to retime an object in the past, you would have to do like the time tracks workflow, and wasn't the most intuitive way to retime things, especially if you had one object track that was 30 frames, another one was 60 frames. But with this new feature called the track modifier tag, you can procedurally retime and add different types of animation effects with just a tag, and it's pretty cool. So show us about the track modifier tag.
this is super awesome. So, and basically what it does is it takes any keyframed animation and allows you to add modification on top of that. So, I mean, you see sort of, this is EJ scene. Thanks, EJ.
I
but
did a
you
lot
see
of work on my squishy, shiny spheres. Hopefully Nick doesn't sue me for copyright on shiny spheres.
So, you see here the original animation that was keyframed, and then you see, some of the modifications the EJ added through the tag. So let's just go to this two times speed one, and we can play around with it a little bit. So you see here that the time factor is negative 50%. Well, we could set that to 50%. Now we're getting half speed. We can set it to like 75%, which slow it down even more. We can offset the whole thing, so we can say let's start at 15 frames in, and of course we ran out of frames, but that's what it's supposed to do. You can also sort of like bring down the strength of the parameters overall. But then what gets really cool is when you get into these specific modes. Mm-hmm. So like posterization, you can create stop motion effects. So and the cool thing about this is that, you could render just at 12 for FPS, but this allows you to actually have some objects that are in a stop motion effect while other objects aren't, because obviously just the objects that the tag is applied to are going to have this effect. And we do have the option down here to, have that tag affect everything down the hierarchy, to have it affect the animation tracks on tags. And then you have an include exclude list, which you can actually include specific tracks or exclude specific objects. So lots of options here. So that's kind of the posterization, which I think is, super cool. And then, we added these other modes on top too. So you have like springiness, and you can see that over here, being able to just add sort of that additional secondary motion onto the animation that you've hand keyframed. And then noise, you can just kind of add some random. Oh, that's not offset. I should change the strength.
There
so you can add some sort of randomness, and that's because we're getting the scale there, right? But I can pull the scale, or actually it's the attributes. I can pull the attributes down, and we can dial in how much we want each aspect of this to be sort of noisy.
And change that. You could change the speed to change how that noise is kind of animating across. You can get random. It's just a great way to add randomness to a specific value on an object. And
then from there we've got smooth too, which you show here is like just sort of smoothing out the animation track, and you can adjust this curve to kind of adjust how that smoothing is interpolated. But one of the really cool uses for this is if you've got some like jittery mocap data, you can actually use this to kind of take that jitter out of the mocap.
Yeah, I mean, I applied because just for testing purposes, I just had a animation with it was just all linear keyframes, so very rigid, no ease in, ease out, and you just apply this track modifier tag to it, and then just adjust that range. And you can think of that range as almost like a Gaussian blur effect of like your Bezier handles. Like the more the range is, it's like the longer those Bezier handles are. So it's a super cool feature for sure. And then the springy, like I know to get that kind of springy effect in the past, you would have to delay effector and set it to object mode, right? So now it's just boom, right out of the box, just right click, add that tag, and you get all this nice springy motion, which who does not like springy motion?
We know you do.
And I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of this kind of stuff. Oh, one of the other cool things is that say you just wanted to apply this to a specific parameter that's animated, you can right click on that parameter, and like I thought that was a cool thing. If you go, let's see, coordinates.
Well, I'm on the original. Wait, where's here
you go. So if you just right click on that parameter, there you go.
PY here, we can just right click.
So you got the filter search there, but then you can go to animation, add track modifier tag, and that will just add it to that specific. No,
it already has it. So
it already has it.
Do it here.
It'll add it to that specific track. Boom.
There we go. And you see it's already got that included. Yeah.
And the cache, you can cache everything. And Can you bake, and then you can then bake that to keyframes using the old bake?
So this
Workflow?
cache is specifically for caching the spring, because that kind of
Okay.
needs a cache
Yeah.
ultimately to render. But yeah, I haven't tried it, but I imagine that you can use just the old standard keyframe bake
Right.
to bake out the result of this if you want to lock it in.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but like I think one of the coolest things is, you know, if you watch any breakdown of like Enter the Spider-Verse, they had all of these characters kind of animated on like the 2s, and this character was animated on the 4s. And
Right.
if you want to, do you still have that other project file I sent
Oh
you with
yeah.
the other squishy spheres? So you can have all of these objects, and you can actually animate the that specific like frame rate. So you can actually have a like that one that you have your cursor over. That's an animated frame rate that's animated on the 2s in some frames and 4s on the other. And so like I think this is just put this in the hands of a like a character animator or whatever. Like I think this is going to unlock a lot of potential as far as animation workflows, because this is all based off of that furthest left original animation with just smooth animation curves. So this is
Right.
super, super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited. You know, this is one of those things that I'm excited to see, you know, what people do with it. You know,
People who can animate way better than me.
Totally. Hey, I couldn't even make the spheres animate.
Well, I took animation boot camp, so I know how to do.
There you go.
My ball bounce and
Everybody,
everything.
take
Shameless
those
plug.
great school of motion courses.
There you go. Yeah, we need to get you signed up. Cool. So that's track modifier tag. Another new feature that I think a lot of people are going to use are the new vector import, which I know has a soft spot in your heart, because this is kind of your labor of love over, man, how long have you been working on this a spline tool like this?
Yeah, I mean, see, folks know that Spline Import has always been something that a workflow that I've always been trying to improve in Cinema 4D, and we finally got it in native, so that now you can bring in Illustrator files from any version and just add them directly without having to save them down to Illustrator 8. This basically uses the, you know, when you save that Illustrator file, it says save with PDF compatibility. This is basically using that PDF compatibility to bring in the Illustrator files. You know, you can bring them in and just get all of your splines, you know, sort of like old fashioned style. But, you know, now we're actually coloring the splines too, which I think is really cool. And you can use these colors. They actually come in as path info tags, so you can like use Espresso or whatever to like map these colors out onto materials and whatnot. But you know, we've made it even easier on everyone because we've added this create vector object option. And what this does is it creates a vector object that's procedural, so you can adjust the offset between each layer. You can adjust the offset between each path. You can change the extrude depth. This is, you know, automatically centering the artwork, which is, you know, obviously always helpful and, you know, used to be a hassle. And then what we're doing here basically is we're turning an extrude out of any filled path, and we're turning any stroked path into a sweep object. And again, you can go in and actually animate these things too, so you can you know, animate the growth of these things.
One of the coolest things about this is that typically in the past, if you wanted to bring in a stroke path, you would actually have to is it create outlines or whatever?
Yeah.
But with this, like, this is actually, you don't have to do that. Like, this recognizes the strokes, and like that's huge. If you work with a lot of logos that have strokes on them, like, you don't have to do anything in Illustrator. You don't have to export as AI version 8 anymore. There's really little prep that you would have to do if an Illustrator sends you Illustrator file and to bring it into Cinema 4D and to be able to 3Dify it, you know.
Totally. And the cool thing too is that this is a live connection to that Illustrator file. So you can jump into Illustrator and change the file and just hit this refresh button, and it'll bring the new changes to the paths in, and all of, sort of this layer offset and extrude depth, all those settings that you set up, even, if you've animated them, that'll all be retained.
Yeah.
So yeah, very useful. And then also added support for SVG too. So you can just bring in any SVG object. This one doesn't support the vector import object yet, but we've kind of added that same ability where it'll automatically create the extrusions for you, and it brings in all the splines with the colors. And
it's
so
drag and drop now.
Huh?
It's drag and drop. You just drag that file in there.
Yeah. So yeah, and you can bring in just the splines, or you can bring in the extrusions. So yeah, super cool to be able to get this. 2D to 3D is such a workflow that so many, especially motion designers, need. The basic flying logo is sort of the most elementary starting point, and so yeah, this is great to be able to bring in SVG or Illustrator files, no prep, no opening Illustrator if you've just gotten the file from someone else. So yeah.
Right. So we actually have some questions coming in. Again, keep those questions coming.
Yeah.
So does EPS work? Ryan Shackelford is wondering about EPS support.
I think EPS worked prior. It should still work.
Okay.
It's just kind of a modification on the AI8 file. I'm not 100% sure though.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Sarah Wade, our own Sarah Wade, asks if the parts. So you name layers in Illustrator, right? Do those named layers also transfer over for like specific paths, or
the named layers do? So this is going to be an uglier file, but I've got one here, I think, that's called layer names. Let me see. Do I have one that's called layer names? I've got a mess of test files as we were developing this thing. But yeah, so here you can see that these were actually the layer names: rectangle, hexagon layer, and circles. So you do get the layer names in. And of course, these layers, define that layer offset when you're using the vector import object. You do not get the spline names, and that's just kind of a limitation of the PDF format. It doesn't actually give us those. So,
Gotcha.
but you do get the layer names.
Yeah. I mean, that is descriptive enough, where as before it was just spline, null,
right,
totally unnamed. Awesome. Okay, so let's also go to, so let's cover capsules and all that last. So let's shift to Redshift.
Okay.
And because you guys
shift
just
to Redshift.
announced Redshift RT. I know you like that. Didn't even pun intended. Because this was this is like, I think even in the beta we were like, oh wow, they're actually we're getting this first glimpse of Redshift RT. And I love this because the promise of Redshift RT is that you can build a scene in Redshift with the way you normally would, with your materials, your lights, and whatever. And RT is literally just a switch, and it tries to make a one-to-one comparison, or a one-to-one match of your scene as it looks. So that's RT.
Yeah.
So you just flip a switch and start moving stuff around.
And so, yeah, this uses DXR, DirectX ray tracing technology. And it's just a different way of using the graphics card to process these images. And the great thing is it supports GI. You get, really fast feedback in the viewport or in the render view. And yeah, you can start playing with this, and it's really good for sort of dialing in your lighting, where you can see it with GI and whatnot. And this is, I should make sure it's clear. I don't know if we mentioned it, that this is a sort of an open beta at this point.
Right.
It's certainly not something that we consider feature complete or done yet.
Yeah.
But, Redshift has always adopted this sort of open development model where, actually, our C4D beta testers don't usually see the Redshift stuff until it comes out to the whole public.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's this is a super cool thing that's just going to continue to grow.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Is like the RT stuff, like even if it's not, it's open beta, it is a great way to see your GI, especially if you have your cache, right? Because to see cache, you would have to wait for the buckets to go around to see that in Redshift.
Right.
Yeah. So this is a really cool. I was playing around with it, and it's just really cool to see that glimpse into the future of what's on the horizon for Redshift, what's on the horizon for even Cinema 4D. We see this first few steps, and we've been kind of seeing this in the past few versions with scene nodes and stuff like that. So that's a good segue into some scene nodes and what are the updates to that? I know one of the big things is something called capsules.
Yeah. So, when we came out with the scene manager in S24, we started sort of creating some of these capsule-like technologies and really leveraging the asset system to be able to do to create new sort of plugin like objects and features completely within the asset system. And so let's go ahead and pull up that 7 segment that I showed a fair number of times with the scene nodes. Oh, we pull it in through the spline primitive. There we go. And we'll pull up the 7 segment. And what we did is we made it so that these things could happen directly in the object manager. So you get all of the sort of flexibility and capabilities of the scene node system, but you get them in the context of the object manager, and you can still take advantage of all of the great workflows and features that we have in classic Cinema 4D. So, here I've created a spline primitive, and I've just used a standard classic C4D extrude to extrude it, and then I can go in and do things like grab this greeble and apply that onto this extrude. And so we get this sort of greebled effect, or we can, grab a dual mesh instead. We can drop that on, and let's kill the greeble. And so, you can get these new looks, new effects, and they're all being delivered through our asset system. They're not even features of the app, but they're using the scene node system to build these things up.
Because previously, to be able to get that, like, you didn't have that interaction with classic C4D objects like this.
Right. Yeah. Previously, scene nodes and scene manager were kind of stuck in their own world. But now, if I want to use this in a dynamic simulation, or if I want to use it with volumes, that's all possible now.
Right.
So that's super cool. And we've got the ability, one of the things that we worked on in this cycle was the splines and the data side of the scene nodes core. And the cool thing is that again has brought the ability to, well, let's just take the spline primitive. We'll pull it out here. We'll leave it extruded. That'll be more visible. We can create these new spline primitives now. So here we've got like a linear arrow, and we can actually have that right in our interface. We've got
Ryan Summers wanted to know what that flight path one was.
Yeah, so the flight path is something that we actually built in conjunction with the data side of things. So there's an asset called global pins, and I'm actually just going to pull up the file because it's got some materials and stuff in it. But the idea with the data thing was we wanted to be able to start integrating CSV and CSV data into scene nodes builds, because there's a lot of cases where you want to generate a whole bunch of objects based on a data set. One of the examples I show is like a medical data set. And also it provides a lot of powerful templating capabilities for users. And so I know like our motion graphics users often have to do versioning and things like that. And if you can pull stuff straight out of a database, that's, super handy.
Mhm.
So one of the assets we built here is this global pins asset, which allows you to create create flight paths dynamically. So basically you give it GPS coordinates, for the start and the end. And this is actually feeding out of a database of all the airports in the world. So, we can go in here and create a flight path between any two airports. Super easy. So we just go here to the flight path. And here what I'm actually doing is I'm using our new command line argument node to feed that so that you could actually just from a command line type in the flight path that you want to generate. But let's go ahead and kill that, and we'll just type one in. So what DIA? You're there in Denver, right?
Very good.
And LAX. So let's go ahead and scroll around here to the other side of the country. And it looks like DIA ended up somewhere else. I'm not sure what happened there. Is it DIA?
I think it is. Let's LAX to
let's just go. We were in Portland, right? Let's try LAX
PDX,
to PDX. Right? Yeah, we were up in Portland for Camp MoGraph.
So
there you go. We've got LAX to PDX. And this again, I think I showed those new pin assets that are in the data system. Well, you can go in here and you can change, like if you don't want pins, you can use thumbtacks, or we've got the little flags, little buttons. So yeah, this is really cool, starting to show what we can do with capsules, what we can do with data integration, the splines. Kind of this asset, I think, kind of brings a lot of those features together in one asset.
And I see an animation tab in there too. Can you actually animate that flight path?
Yeah. So I don't know why this asset browser is stocked. You just go in here and you can animate. So we've got the pin and label animation. Kind of, there's sort of a built-in ease curve and overlap there. And then the flight path animation is over here. So you can actually animate the flight path right there.
Very cool. So it's like making, like at least talking through on the beta forums and stuff, like the promise of capsules is people can make their own little plugins almost for Cinema 4D for something like a specific use case for something like this. And I think it's great that maybe previously, I know me personally, I haven't messed too much with the scene nodes and stuff like that, just because I couldn't use it with some of the objects that I'm used to use, like the classic C4D objects in the object manager. And there's actually quite a few, like you were just showing some of those spline presets and stuff like that you can use with your classic extrude, and use that to create whatever you want, use it for actual work purposes. But there are some really cool modifiers, right, that you can actually use with classic C4D objects. And this is something Rick just showed me before stream, and I was like, oh, holy crap, this is super cool. So
so one of the things we're always doing, right, is trying to get these primitives, to have an axis in a different spot, right? Well, we have a geometry axis modifier, and you can use that to adjust the axis of a primitive while keeping it completely primitive. So I can just set this axis to Y 100%. Now, whatever size the sphere is, it's going to be locked onto the ground plane. Same thing with a cube. I can drop this on the cube instead. And if we change the height of the cube, it'll just always stay locked on the ground plane. So that's, super handy. Just, little simple thing like that, but being able to use the flexibility of scene nodes in classic C4D, makes that kind of thing really easy for us to deliver and for users to take advantage of.
Yeah, I think stuff like this, again, you're getting these little glimpses into, what these, the scene nodes and these capsules, like how this should kind of shake out in the future of Cinema 4D. We're kind of seeing a little bits of that, especially with this new UI, and then little things like this of how things will work. And Evgenly, I think that's how you say. They're asking about the speed of capsules in the object manager. Does it compare to the same setup if you built that same thing in the scene manager?
Not totally. So we've optimized it as best we can. It'll actually, if you've stacked a whole bunch of capsules all in a row, like if you've used a whole bunch of modeling operations, it internally collapses those into a single node graph. But if you've got a few capsules and then a standard C4D, classic C4D object, and then a few more capsules, you're actually creating multiple node graphs there, and we can't optimize as much as we can within the C node system. So you don't get all of the speed and whatnot that we ultimately are going to be delivering through C nodes and Scene Manager. But you do get the flexibility and the power and the asset creation capabilities and get them tied in with the features of classic C4D.
Awesome. Let's see. Let's do one last question on where was it? So, I mean, this kind of ties in this question from Solid Air. They're kind of asking about, like where's all this kind of taking us? What's a little like a little bit of the end game? Like because he or she asked specifically, will this eventually just overtake? Scene nodes, will they just overtake Espresso, and that'll kind of this will be the new nodal workflow in C4D? Or
well, I mean, this is already more powerful than Espresso, because Espresso was just about expression relationships, whereas this allows us to create geometry, create scenes, create all of these rich experiences that are all tied up into, something that looks just like any other C4D object. And so, yeah, I think that, to sort of speak to the end game, the great thing here is that we can continue to build capabilities into the scene nodes architecture. Data and splines were added in this cycle. We're going to continue working on splines. We're going to continue working on data. We're going to build more and more capabilities into the scene nodes architecture. And those capabilities will allow us to make and deliver to you more powerful capsules that will look like new Cinema 4D classic features, while at the same time we're building that ecosystem up so that if more and more stuff can be done completely in scene nodes and Scene Manager without having to use the classic system. And you'll have, all of the advantages of speed and power that we envisioned when we created this new core.
Awesome. Well, I think that will do it. I know you got a busy day today. I know it's been a busy week, so I really appreciate you taking your time out. And it was good to catch up with you last week. I hope we can get this stuff together again. And actually, I want to keep you here for one last question, because I do want to start plugging some stuff that's happening over here at School of Motion. But I'd love to get your take on this, and it's based off of a question that someone asked. And it kind of ties into the fact that registration's actually open here at School of Motion. I don't know if people are aware of that, but registration's open. Fall session starts Monday, October 4th. And one of the questions that someone had was, I think it was AD9 TV. They're hesitant to move from 2D to 3D, and they wanted to hear advice for that. And I personally would say that, I had the same hesitancy. 3D is hard. But I mean, the reason why I think I got so quickly up and running in it was because I used Cinema 4D at the studio that I worked for, and I got my feet wet in it. On Monday, I was assigned a 3D logo animation, and by Friday, I got it done. I mean, it probably looks, if I look at it now, I wouldn't show it to you, but I mean, I think it's the easiest way to learn 3D. But I'd love to get your take on, just because 3D is everywhere, and you have this AR, VR tech. And I know, Rick, you being part of Maxon and in this high role, you talk with people from, all these major companies, like tech companies that we all know and love. So I'd love to get your take on like the importance of learning 3D to try to stay ahead in this industry.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, I think that 3D is just going to increase in importance. I mean, we have seen tremendous growth. The motion graphics industry continues to boom, especially as it's harder to, shoot commercials and whatnot. Let's go create that in 3D, and we don't have to, have photography. We don't have to have a crew and things like that. I think that AR and those applications, there's so many uses for 3D, and we see so much demand for Cinema 4D artists. And the great thing is that within the MAXON ecosystem, you have those bridges. You have Trapcode Particular that allows you to start bringing 3D type effects into your After Effects compositions. You have things like the vector import object that we've added in Cinema 4D R25, where you can, you mentioned that first logo project, right? Well, now that's that much easier, right? And you don't have to focus on the hard part of figuring out how to bring it in and create the extrusions and stuff. You can just get them in, and then you can kind of play with animating it. And I think you, with your courses, and I think you do some of this in the School of Motion courses, you do a really great job of building that bridge and showing people how they can achieve 2D effects within Cinema 4D, and also just bringing it from that perspective. So I think it's super important, and School of Motion is actually a fantastic place to start that journey.
Well, I appreciate that. And we do have our 3D courses that, again, registration's open. If you're looking to get into 3D and want to learn it, we have Cinema 4D Basecamp. That's kind of like, go from zero to hero, having zero experience in 3D and getting the hang of it. And, by the end of that course, you could come back and watch this live stream and probably everything will make a lot of sense. But if you are, familiar with 3D and you want to take things to the next level, that's our Ascent course, where we cover a lot of the more advanced 3D concepts like, rigging, third-party renderers, animation, MoGraph techniques, stuff like that, dynamics, soft body dynamics, simulations. And then if you want to up your lighting, your cinematography game, your ability to tell stories through a 3D camera, and Rick was just talking about how just with our situation these days, we're stuck at home. So a lot of the work we would typically do on site is now done from the seat of our home offices. And if you want to, tell those kind of cinematic stories, lights, camera, render, hoo boy, that'll put you through the ringer, and you'll come out a fantastic 3D artist, fantastic 3D storyteller. And that's kind of like the capstone there. But yeah, and other news, we got yet another live stream. So many live streams happening this week with our own Kyle Hamrick. He is hosting a live stream with After Effects. We got MAXON and After Effects this week, which is super cool. So the After Effects team is going to be on with Puget Systems as well. Love those folks at Puget Systems making really great computers out there. And they're going to be talking all about that new After Effects multi-frame rendering, that MFR we've been hearing about so much. And that's going to be back here, same School of Motion channel, YouTube channel at noon Eastern on Friday, I believe. Yep, Friday. So come on back here Friday. We got a lot of news this week. So again, Rick, thank you so much for stopping by, and for everyone that stopped by to hang out with us, thank you so much as well. Always good to connect with everyone, especially since it seems like everything is shutting down. I guess this is the perfect time to also say that looks like NAB is not going to happen. MAXON's no longer going. I know our big
the show itself announced that they're closed. They canceled the whole show today.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
Okay.
NAB's not happening at all now.
So there you go. It's not happening at all.
Which is such a bummer because, everyone at MAXON just loves spending time with all of you. And it really is what invigorates us. And, that beer event that we put on with the School of Motion every year has become so fantastic. And I just, completely heartbroken that we won't all be able to get together again this year.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, maybe we can get these smaller meetups going. I know here in Denver, I think we're able to actually start doing some stuff here. So hopefully we'll all see each other again real soon. But in the meantime, we're just going to have to hang out on the interwebs, and it's great to be a part of such an amazing community. For sure, the School of Motion community is, really awesome. MAXON community is super cool. So it's been the two things keeping me going through and keeping me sane through all of this. So again, appreciate everyone out there for tuning in. Again, thanks, Rick. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll see you Friday for the After Effects stream.
Yep.